I love me some crazy characters in movies, TV shows, games, individuals into self-punishment, and just being generally wacky with vastly different portrayals.
In displaying their insanity.
And when we first unlocked the Shackles, Fortella's voice acting brought this character to life in such an amazing way. I couldn't wait to see what the manacle-wielding psycho was going to be all about. And I loved every minute of it. Except for escape scenarios. No, they're terrible. The Pain Conduit is a medium health, condition-loving beast, able to withstand and redirect punishment to their foes. This tortured soul has the unique ability to ignore negative conditions that they receive and even transfer these conditions to their enemies, adding a distinctive playstyle that is super fun and unique to experience. But with a hand limit of 10, I was slipping further down into the territory of a tighter hand economy, but I couldn't wait to sink my teeth into this maniacal heroine. The Pain Conduit has a listed complexity of 3 out of 5 and specializes in fire and ice elements. And probably my favorite feature is amazing at distributing pure damage, perfect for dispatching mobs who like to hide behind their shields. The base level cards generally give you an idea of the playstyle of any given character, and the Pain Conduit seems to have tools to collect and spread conditions, as well as being able to take damage for teammates and reflect that damage to monsters around them. So we covered our Shackles unboxing video a few months ago, so if you want to see our raw reaction to the Shackles cards, hit up the link above. I've never done this before, I assume it's going to appear here. I chose to center my build around one particular card, as it stood out to me as a very unique and fascinating way to really play the Shackles, and I really wanted to see if I could pull it off. So did I? Let's talk about the level 1 and X cards, starting with Delayed Melody, which is a level X card, but I wanted to talk about it first as it was the cornerstone to what I was trying to do. Delayed Melody's bottom effectively allows you to ignore the effects of all negative conditions you receive, which on its own is fucking busted. Immobilize, stun, whatever. Disarm, bring it on. This card encourages you to do something no character, at least that I've seen, really wants. Grab negative conditions. Oh, and seeing that so many other cards apply conditions to both enemies and yourself, you want to go all Pokemon with all the afflictions and collect them all for a massive swing of power. Especially when paired with Infection Purge and the Agony of Others, which I will speak about shortly. The downside is, well, it only lasts 5 turns, so you better have a contingency plan for when it falls off, because suddenly you'll feel gimpier than a level 7 trap, and nobody wants that. So the general idea is you play this card and then you collect negative conditions, and then play cards that increase in power based on the amount of negative conditions you've, accumulated. The top of Delayed Melody is a cute way to cleanse yourself of all conditions, including stun, whilst also subbing in a card from your hand to immediately use its top action. A unique interaction I've yet to see play out, but handy to know it exists. I'll be referring to this card throughout my video and shortening the name of it to just DM. Shared Affliction is a card that blew my mind when I first saw it, and since that unboxing, it's legit been super lackluster. Basically, whenever you perform an attack, keyword attack, you get to add all the negative conditions you've accumulated to the attack, except for Brittle, Bane, and Stun. This is a fairly class-defining card, and you can already see how cool it is, but I found myself never really using it because of a few factors. Number 1, it's a second persistent, alongside DM, which, with a hand size of 10, already shortens your time in any given scenario fairly dramatically. Heaven forbid you pick an escape scenario. Number 2, a few of your offensive abilities, especially the later ones, aren't even attacks, which doesn't proc Shared Affliction, so half the time it feels like a waste. And number 3, if I do get an attack off, whatever I've just hit and given all these negative conditions to, it's probably dead. Close to dead, or about to be dead from the next character activation. Meaning, why bother? I can see how this could work on bosses, provided you found a boss that isn't immune to 90% of the condition list. But when you're blowing this and DM, it just seems a little bit like overkill. Now, if Shackles had more multi-target attacks, I would take this and use this in a burn fast and bright situation. But seeing multi-attacks on this class would be busted AF. And on its own, I can see this card being used more. But as I stated, I kind of went all in on DM, so welcome to the bin, Shared Affliction. Oh wait, the bottom is a move 3. Remove a condition and give a monster the same condition. It's okay. It's a rare way to transfer a Bane or a Disarm once DM falls off, but I barely touched this after the first few scenarios, so I'll introduce this lovely card to its new home, the Undead Bin. I can probably smell a bit of hate already. Blood Ritual. The top is an attack 4, range 3, punch yourself in the face for 2, which is a nice dependable attack at the start with no strings attached. Seems super vanilla, but I found it's been a flexible card depending on the scenario. Having no element restrictions makes it relatively worthwhile throughout most of your campaign, as it'll generally always accomplish something. Blood Ritual's bottom allows you to soak up all the conditions received by your party within range 3, which came in super handy for 2 or 3 certain scenarios when I was taking just all the curses like I was Perry Piper. This unique reason alone gives this card flex status, and I'd suggest you look at the scenario rules and monster list to see if it's worth slotting in. Cleansing Fire is a phenomenal way to do an attack 1 and get a single wound out. I mean, holy shit. If you've been waiting your whole campaign for a class you can attack 1 and wound, you've found the holy grail of attack 1 wound. Now obviously I'm missing the text on the card, which obviously makes this better. All allies and enemies adjacent to the target suffer 1 damage and infuse fire. Celebrate, Geminate mains. You've now got the perfect class and card to relive your chaotic days, terrorizing monsters and teammates alike, albeit slightly more shit. Look, the pure 1 damage of the attack can pick things off, but what's that? You're hungry. Just hold on. We don't know if this is food for you yet or not. The bottom of Cleansing Fire, though, is a move heal sandwich. And I'll admit that this card has found its way into my deck on certain scenarios when I wanted a move heal sandwich, which isn't often, but it has happened. So essentially, this is a nifty little move heal. Potential status remover with fire generation. Fire the balls, I'd rip this in half for dramatic effects, and then put the top in the bin and keep the bottom as a flex. So yeah. Cleansing Fire, you've just escaped the bin. Although, speaking of bins, Explosive Wounds. Choose an ally within range 3. They suffer 2 damage, and all enemies adjacent suffer 2 damage. 3 if you consume fire. It's fine. I don't think I've used this once. Shackles' hand size is just too small, and I started at level 3, so I'm pretty sure I've never used this. Move to remove all negative conditions from an adjacent ally to gain them. Another card during our unboxing I was excited for, yet now super mega yawn. At least it'll tempt me with a really good initiative, right? Next we have Line of Transference, and this is a pretty flexible card. With Wind Up, it becomes an attack 4 range 3 XP, and allows you to remove a negative condition to give the target the same condition. This is a great option for when DM eventually falls off, although before then it's just an XP generator that hits for 4, or a move 4, which is always happy days. The initiative isn't too bad, but not amazing. But the options this card provides make it a worthy flex card for DMing. Ooh, now we get our first pet, the ever buff and scantily clad Flesh Fiend, provided by Scarred Effigy. This pet ignores Retaliate, has 7 health, and does a move 2 attack 1 each round. Whenever it takes a dicking, you can take said dicking instead, which is pretty fitting with some of the Shackles playstyle. This pet allows you to frontline from afar, and in smaller parties, I can imagine it working out really nicely, especially with our kit. Our group consists of 4 players, so I never really felt a need to bring this along. The bottom being a move to Retaliate 2 is a really decent way to play a more I take it, you take it setup. But it was and has done nothing for me. I can see a different build with this card as a staple, and the 19 initiative is tasty, though not enough to save it for me. So this fleshy beefcake can chill in the bin. Now, a card that gave me a rager initially was Swift Vengeance, and then I found myself using it, and it's actually kind of shit. Here's the thing. When you have Delayed Melody up and you start grabbing conditions, it's just like loading a fresh clip into a gun. And each round, you either fire at the monster's head, doing fat damage, or their arms or legs to achieve different outcomes with whatever ammo you have left. Swift Vengeance is like shooting up in the air in an attempt to scare the monsters. And that's it. Curses are great, don't get me wrong, and in some scenarios, they can really make everything easier. But so can shooting the mob in the face. Yeah. I'll admit, I've used the bottom probably a few more times than the top for loot-heavy scenarios, so there has been a time where it was kind of handy, but Swift Vengeance can join Buff Boy in the bin. Now, speaking of guns and ammo, one of my favourite cards is the Agony of Others, and it's a fairly straightforward ability. Attack 2, range 3, but if you consume fire, add +1 for each negative condition you have. On an average scenario with DM up, I'm rocking between 4 to 6 conditions, turning this into roughly an attack 7, which is delightful. Unless it misses, which it has. But when it lands, it's amazing. The bottom is an amazing card to give you a wicked taste of distributing damage received to any enemy within range 3 times. This is also pure damage, so beat up those shield users. Your group will appreciate your various kinks. We take the agony of others. All right, back to Bin County. Transferred Injury has a place where it's fairly decent at the start of your career, but falls off a cliff rather quickly. If you are playing a more supportive Shackle, first my condolences, but this is a rare opportunity to pump out some group healing if the group needs it, and combine it with a fairly element expensive attack. To be honest, the best thing about this card was the self-wound on the bottom. Yay, little wins. Transferred Binjury. Now, Unending Torment, probably my first real WTF card. The same ability on both top and bottom. How lazy. It's like I came up with it. But I surprised myself with how much I planned around whether or not I wanted to heal with the top for the Immobilize and the Fire generation, or the bottom for the Muddle and Wind generation. It actually became one of my favorite cards because of this flexibility. And it's also one of the first cards my teammates pull whenever I short rest, which is really frustrating, especially because I'm all like, well, there goes all my self-healing. Good luck everybody else. Now this card is still with me all the way to level 8. I enhanced the bottom so that it was like running around with a non-loss greater heal potion. Use it, keep it, do not bin it. Pleasure and Pain is our second X card and one I've never really used. It's a fun little burst heal 3 for you and a friend. Awesome way to blow a top. The bottom though is kind of interesting where they move to poison an ally and yourself, and then all enemies within range 3 suffer 1 damage. I must have overlooked that bottom, as I stopped after the poison and thought to myself, I have another item that does that, so why should I bother? In massive groups of enemies, a bottom that does 1 pure damage to all? Thanks, Daddy. Doing this review allows me to look at missed opportunities. This is actually a pretty awesome level 1 card. Sure, you poison a mate, but Geminate would do a lot worse, and more often. So, Revenge? This was insta-bin for me. Like I said, I've never used it. So, yeah, we'll flex this one up. Yay, the Explosion Egg of Unstable Effigy. I took this card a lot more for the bottom move for Immobilize Self and Adjacent because of the DM. Its early initiative was also great, as the I'm going at birds as a Shackle was a great way to cheat. Communicate when I was going. This and the top of Unending Torment were our self-immobilized generators. It's good to have negative options. The pet has been used twice, and I love what it does from a DPS meter point of view. But you can't be blowing lost cards like this with your teeny tiny hand. We can put Eggy, though, in the bag. At level 2, we get Infection Purge and Reversal of Fate. And I took No, I didn't. I had to take another one of my favorite cards and essential to playing around conditions, Infection Purge. This card on average for me resulted in 10 to 12 damage rounds and usually immediately shotgunned off 2 lower health enemies. It was one of my most satisfying rounds every rest cycle to just blow up lowly monsters. Hell, you can combine it with the Agony of Others, like the bottom, for 15 to 18 damage in a turn. That's pretty gross, but not for me. Okay, it's gross for me too, because booking myself for 5 to 6 damage just to use this only got me into trouble like most of the time. But Toying with Death is a fun little mini game that'll keep your friends on the edge of their seats. This tends to be the first card after setting up my DM. The Fire generation is also good for the follow-up with the top Agony of Others, so you can see we start to build up a fun little combo for a few rounds. The bottom is a damage soak for your friends if you want to play a more supportive build. I never really use it. Reversal of Fate is a nice little burst heal damage, basically a lifesteal, with Bless and Curse mixed in. I didn't really care about it. The bottom is like a Retaliate, but you can't control it as much. It's the next one-off damage you take, and it has to be reflected to the attacker instead of to an enemy within X range. To me, this card is kind of hot garbage, but if you aren't going conditions, it becomes good hot garbage. At level 3, we get Burned at both ends and Reprisal. This was actual agony, because I took Burned at both ends for the Disarm collection. Makes sense with DM. Barely used the top unless it was to pick something off. But the Fire generator and self-disarm, not to mention the disarm to one adjacent enemy, was so clutch in so many situations. This was one half to a combo we get to later, and ultimately became my scenario opener most times. Reprisal. I wanted this at level 3, and then at level 4, and then at 5, 6, and then at 8. Every time I leveled up, I was thinking, oh my god, I need to go back and get this. And then I thought, it's level 3, do I really go back and get this card? Looking back, I'd say yes. The top Retaliate wouldn't ruin your DM build. You break wind all the time, and with Fire Shield Potion, it becomes a Retaliate 5-6, and with the bottom of Buff Boy, it becomes a 7-8. And you can enhance both cards further. What the actual fuck? The only reason I didn't take a more retaliate direction was because at the start we had someone who was playing a retaliating character, and I didn't want to sort of just go down the same path. There's also the chance that enemies don't attack you, which always feels bad, man. And there's the possibility I'd get bored of the playstyle, as it wouldn't challenge the brain like dancing around conditions and DMing would. This is a horrible decision process, and I loved that the game finally threw a level up conundrum right in my face. At level 4, we get Down to the Dirt and Mirrored Misery. We took Down to the Dirt as an attack 5, provided your health meets the requirements. Seemed decent enough and didn't really rely heavily on the condition setup. This was fairly lackluster because I wasn't taking a lot of damage at the start, but towards the end of the career, I was constantly low, and this was an effective attack. Throw in once or a rest cycle, HP permitting. The bottom really shined as a move 4, heal 4 to 5 on average, and was delightful, especially with DM up. The initiative was hot garbage. Take this for the heal if playing around DM. Mirrored Misery, on paper, seemed like a great last-ditch, heavy-hitting card. With a high HP ally getting booked, you get more and more excited, as this can easily become a 15+ attack, and even head up into the 20s. It's just hard to pull off properly due to needing to be adjacent to the ally and then have the enemy also adjacent, yada yada. The bottom move 2 gives something all your conditions. It's a great tool for when DM fell off. It was usually my transition card to cleanse myself and debuff the crap out of something else whilst I decide if I want to collect conditions again for when I was ready. I should have taken Reprisal. Level 5, we get Chained by Despair and Chained by Spite. Chained by Despair is a permanent buff that gives you conditions galore, as you can gain any condition except for Brittle and Bane at the start of each turn. This is amazing for Shared Affliction. Line of Transference, filling in your DM condition gaps, it's a very flexible card. The bottom is like a condition Retaliate, which is interesting but super niche, and the initiative is, well, great. Chain to Spite allows you to book yourself at the start of each round to apply that same amount of booking to an enemy within range 3. Really awesome for the self-damage, shackly people. The bottom is super good, as it's a pure power creep to your buff boy bottom. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. By increasing the movement and giving 2 Retaliate range 2. Both class-defining cards that really open up the options and propel you forward. So which one did I take? I took Mirrored Misery, because I'm an idiot and I wanted my friends to nearly die a lot. Which one should I have taken? Reprisal. At level 6, we get something I didn't think we would get. We get Bane. I was so excited to finally have an option through hopelessness. When I saw it, I almost blindly locked it in, and then started to think about it more and more. It's 10 damage to myself that I can only really give via Line of Transference or the Shared Affliction bottom, which I wasn't super excited to set up for. All that for 2 damage, 4 with wins, and 10 on the following round. I felt my other combos were going to do that already without taking this card. It would probably work better with a damage self build. I don't know, I didn't take it. Move 6 bottom, take 4 damage, again seems to work better with damage taken builds. My excitement died. Phantom Limb gave me an attack 3 or 5 if I was disarmed, and the ability to attack with it even if I was disarmed. In fact, the only way to get the most value out of it was to be disarmed. Disarmed. This became a general opener for me with the bottom of Burned at both ends, which would lead into a round 2 Delayed Malady plus Infection Purge. The bottom was an XP generator, as I couldn't ever find the right time to use it. I think the range was too restrictive, and getting teammates next to mobs for the heal and the attack was too hard to line up. I probably could have pulled it off with Communication, a la Banner Spear style, but I was lazy, so it gave me XP towards the end of a scenario. Level 7, let's see what we get. I took Penance, which gave me more AoE options with a potential 4 damage all adjacent targets. The bottom was a cute little ranged Retaliate, which I used quite effectively several times recently. Oh my god, this actually would be so good on damage receiving Shackleheads. Our other option, Reject the Gift, is our first and only full damage redirection, which can be very interesting when you know something big is coming, or to combine with Bane, or if you can get Brittle on, yourself, etc. The bottom is a move condition blocker, great for everyone who wasn't me. This was a disappointing level for me, as neither card was really what I was looking for with condition scaling, so yeah, we took Penance for that sweet Initiative 12. Should have probably taken Reprisal. At level 8, we get Wave of Anguish, which sounds like a Deathwalker card. Hang on a sec. Huh. Wave of Anguish. Wow, I knew that sounded familiar. I didn't even play Deathwalker. Sorry. Anyway. Wave of Anguish and Racked with Pain. Wave of Anguish. Ugh, that's really going to bug me now. It's like a beefed up line of transference that allows you to transfer conditions to your target. 6 attack is kind of nice. And the bottom move 5 is really nice. I took this and I used it mostly for the move, to be fair. We Shackles sometimes struggle to, move. Racked with Pain was another card like Hopelessness, where I squealed with excitement to see that I could finally stun things and brittle them if I meet the health requirement, which was no problem. The issue was the wound. Oh God, why put the wound on it? I'd have to communicate with my group to let me go first, when everyone basically beats me in initiative order anyway, for then one person to take advantage of the brittle before the wound does. And of course, being a greedy bitch, I wanted to take advantage of the brittle myself because it's mine. My excitement fell apart rather quickly. The bottom is basically Unending Torment that can be buffed with fire to become a heal 7, but my earlier card was enhanced, so this wasn't that exciting either because it didn't generate an element. What a disappointment. Should have taken Reprisal. Now, I only just hit level 9 when I retired, so I got to look at the cards, but didn't get to use either of them, which is sad. Sad times. Redemption is a perma buff that whenever you take damage, an enemy within range 2 suffers 2. Yeah, this is pretty good. Not for my build. The bottom is a hot mess, and situational on whether there's any curses in play in the scenario. Removing all your curses to curse the enemy deck can be amazing, but yeah, way too situational, and can lead to this being a fairly dead card. The end of everything. Oh my God, I wanted this so badly. Burn Bright, boom, exhaust, curse everything with the perk, attack 5, target 5, range 5, and with Shared Affliction Arm, we can finally AoE spread conditions. I really wanted to try this as it just looks so insane. The bottom being the second card you can play while stunned, which by the way, I don't think I've been stunned more than once in Frosthaven is a thing. During the round, you are unaffected by negative conditions and they can't be removed. It's like a mini round of Delayed Malady, which means this is a great in-between card for when DM falls off. And if you plan to put it on again, more on that shortly. I would have easily taken the end of everything at level 9, and then tried to neck myself towards the end of every scenario. Profit. The end of everything would easily be my level 9 card after taking 6 reprisals. Now let's check out a couple of items. I'm sure there are more out there from the guide writers, but there were a few I took. Some of the items I had made contain spoilers, so turn off your ears or something if you hate that kind of thing. Item-wise, I took item 236, the Cracked Mirror, which you can get from a random side scenario. This allows you to have 10 rounds of Delayed Malady, which is insane. This is a class-defining item, and a super must-have if you want to really play with the DM. Unhealthy Mixture item 98 was great for getting wound and poison on myself. Unfortunately, I've been made aware by the Shackles community that there is a stronger version of this potion, and I have tried to no avail to brew it, as I didn't want to look up the recipe. If you like knowing everything, and you want to min-max your character builds, go ahead and read how to make this, because it'll make your life so much easier with DM. Item 109 is the Major Renewing Potion, which gave me the 2 conditions again for when we pump out our second load of Delayed Malady. And due to our initiative being a bit questionable, I wore Boots of Speed. In hindsight, I probably would and should have swapped this out for Jump Boots. I found my lack of jump rather vexing. My remaining items were random ones collected along the way that really didn't do much for the Shackles, but I had nothing else, so I didn't really bother to remove them. I will say we found the Cloak of Many Pockets blueprint, like item 60, but didn't know how to make item 132, which was a requirement, but I would have totally made this to carry more bag items. Masteries, don't bother, at least not with the DM playstyle. Perks, yes, get perks, they're good. Finally, my general advice. Learn your combos. This seems like the most combo-dependent class that I've played. A lot of times your opener will set the tempo for the rest of your rest cycle. Making sure you have the right elements up can be the difference maker between doing 2 damage and 5 to 8. Because your cards are so dependent on each other, get into the habit of long resting over short resting. Many times in a highly stressful scenario situation, I would short rest only to end up burning something crucial to my kit. This can severely handicap the rest of your playthrough, as we have so many core pieces to our bags of tricks. We even have a helpful class perk to encourage long resting. Do it, so you can control your deck the whole way through. If you didn't take Jump Boots, and you have access to an enhancer, enhance a jump onto your moves. I will say this is damn near critical. Movement isn't our strong suit, so you need to be able to get to where you need to be, or your abilities can be completely wasted if you can't. Communicate with your team. I mean, this should be obvious. You can pump out some insane pure damage, which allows you to pop highly shielded monsters like flame demons. Make those low health, high shielded mobs a priority. And now a small section I'll dedicate to delayed melody. Tempo, tempo, tempo. Your window for DM is 5 rounds. You have 10 cards before you must rest. Planning around this was the trickiest thing in Frosthaven for me. DM ticks over at the end of the round, so if it's up and you long rest, that's a whole round wasted. If the first room has 3 creatures in it and a door, and you have a very burst heavy team, it might be better to hold off on DMing, as you don't want to spend 2 to 3 turns moving to the next room wasting DM charges. It became one of my biggest, most agonizing decisions in all of Frosthaven, when to DM. I've had scenarios where I popped it too early and wasted it. I've had scenarios where I held it for too long because I was waiting for the right opportunity to use it, and it never came. If you're not like us, and you can check out the dungeon layout before you start, this might assist you in working out the timings of when to use it. Also, watch your DM charges. Remember, after 5 rounds, it'll fall off. Plan for that fall off. You'll suddenly find yourself in situations where you're disarmed, stuck on a spot, while also taking wound damage and poisoned. When this happens in a bad spot, it can be catastrophic. Do note that you can volunteer to remove DM yourself just before the fall-off to prevent round-based conditions from impacting your following turn, but at the cost of an XP. So use this to your advantage. Finally, don't be afraid to exhaust. On kill-all based scenarios or boss ones, etc., don't be afraid to burn bright and die fast, giving your maximum impact while your team clean up the scraps. You have a perk literally dedicated to when you exhaust. Don't be afraid to exhaust. That being said, look out for one of the worst scenario win conditions for us, in my opinion, the escape ones, where exhausting leads to failure. It's unfortunate we're not, especially equipped to deal with the long drawn out scenarios, but they're super fun on other classes. Summary. I love the Pain Conduit. It's oozing with theme, very destructive to themselves and their foes, and a head scratcher in all the right places. If getting wrecked and killing everything sounds, appealing to you, lock in your shackles, have a blast, or die trying. I would play it again in a heartbeat and try a different playstyle, but I know a teammate would love to have a go, so I shall free it up for him. So long, my nightmare princess. Just to get a little bit real here. If you enjoy what we're putting out at Amdirt, we would love and appreciate a like and subscribe. I've never asked, but I do want to know if we should continue making more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Daddy, and when it comes to getting handcuffed, it's all on the wrist.